The format that we decided for the closing plenary is really really open. All of the chairs who are still around, um, like last year I don't know for the ones of you that were in the room in Paris, I was, but my brain was absolutely mush at this time. And it's not far from the same state right now. But we decided to have a quick round of sharing between the chairs. Of course, all of the people, all of the speakers, all of the people in the audience who would like to share on their experience, on their inspiration, on the next steps they would like to see to this kind of events, especially or perhaps in relationship with the AI summit that is currently ongoing in India. You're welcome to share. So, Anna, since you're joining back from Room B, would you like to tell us a little bit what are your main takeaways from this day, and what are the next step you would like to see for pairs?
Pierre, could you stop sharing your screen so we can see everyone? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure this slide had a lot of value added.
Great. Yeah, happy to start. We've just finished the session in Ruby. In fact, we rushed a bit to be able to join the plenary, but it was really great. And it was mainly around when participation really has to take the form of refusal and contestation. Um, and I think the question that remains from this session, but also other research on that is when basically we've been talking in a previous session. I was also sharing on the importance of early involvement, early engagement, before procurement, before tools are designed and implemented. But again, we find that this rarely happens. It's very difficult for it to really happen early on, and we still struggle for that. And then the other option that we're left with is contestation, refusal, activism. So I don't know. I guess I want more of those examples and especially with the things as they stand now and what the world is going through. It's clear that we are in a time where there's a need for contestation and activism. So yeah, I guess participation sometimes it's important we don't forget that often the only bottom-up approach to participation is activism and refusal and contestation. So I guess more of that will be great, and I'm sure in the next pairs we'll probably have more examples of that too. But it was two great presentations we had in the last session and four in the earlier one. So yeah, really good content from the researchers. So thank you to everyone.
I think René, you're the other chair that has survived all the way to the closing plenary.
Yeah, so I have thoughts. One is I think that we should tell people to be clear about what they mean about AI. And we saw this in Paris that generative AI and specifically LLMs had taken over the discourse, which often will make participation kind of like, what do you think about blank? As opposed to, can you use the software? Can you use deep learning? Can you turn facial recognition technology on powerful actors like the police? Should you be protesting a data center? These are all components of AI, but we often will narrow it just to generative AI, just to LLMs. Second of all, I'm constantly interested in the concept of what constitutes meaningful participation, especially since most people shave off the top rung of Arnstein's ladder, which is citizen control, which, of course, in the global south is very problematic because often, if you have control as a citizen, you're left without any netting. And then you get blamed as an NGO if something goes wrong. So it can be problematic in the global south as opposed to the global north, but we still need to continually interrogate what constitutes meaningful. And to that point, what the role of resistance and refusenicks and and non-respondents in this ecosystem of participatory AI. That we're not always working pleasantly with government and with industry, and sometimes we really do need to oppose those institutions. Um, yeah, and that's kind of it for me.
So I forgot Ned was also a chair. So Ned, please go ahead, share your takeaways as well.
Yeah, sure. I'll just share very briefly and just support and found very interesting the comments from the other chairs. Um, the session I had quite a number of sort of platforms and benchmarking or benchmarks. So people developing tools to allow people to audit the outputs of AI models, tools allowing people to participate in public decision making. Decision making around AI systems at the sort of local government level, and then tools around like deliberative polling and comparing the outputs of deliberative polling to LLMs. So it was sort of interesting to think about these tools that people are using to facilitate participation in different contexts. And I think people were talking about in the questions, we really spoke about the challenges of scale. So for some people, we're building tools that were for one particular local government area, and there was a question about how you scale that to big cities, and people talked about the idea of transferability rather than generalizability. So building tools and building the process of working with local communities and then transferring that process and perhaps a sort of a limited version of the digital tool to sort of appropriate for later other contexts rather than just generalizing from one tool to many. And then the other tools we talked about, like how large technology companies might use the tools that people had developed, particularly for auditing and deliberative polling, as part of their sort of products. And there was a suggestion that maybe these tools are well placed for third parties rather than the companies themselves, if you're doing auditing in particular. So it's a sort of interesting question about where we're developing tools for participatory work, where that work sits, like who's conducting that work, and then also this challenge of scale when we're using those tools, whether they're applying to products that have large user bases or where they're developed for specific local communities.
Thanks, and I'll perhaps share a little bit as well, and especially contrast the pairs of 2026 with the pairs of 2025. Obviously, online is less charming than meeting all of you in Paris, although, and even if a lot of them have gone to bed by now, we wish Pairs is going on tomorrow for its on-site day in New Delhi. And so I'm sure that we will discover from the recordings a lot of fascinating talks for the second days of Pairs. But just based on the few plenary sessions, presentations that I attended, and panels that I moderated, clearly there is a sense of growing maturity within the CSO world, right? There are a lot of different CSOs that are now that have a much better understanding of what is AI, what are the struggles that needs to be fought against or around those technologies, but also there is this sense of there was a Cambrian explosion of methodologies and frameworks, and now there is this need for both convergence and, as Ned outlined, transferability or adaptability, right? Because a lot of those frameworks were developed by, groups of researchers that we all love because we look like them, right? Like it's really the people that attend Pairs that produce those, and obviously there might be some gaps and and things that need to be adapted for them, for instance, to be properly actionable in a global south context. But generally as well, I think that all of those tools are really meant to enable something that for me is absolutely essential, at least in my opinion. But perhaps that's because I've read a little bit too much of Antonio Gramsci, the communist philosopher of Italy, that we have a cultural battle to fight, right? That part of our work is both to make it a reflex, to make it natural, to embed participatory practices in the development and governance of AI, but also doing so to bust some of the myth that the AI industry is trying to push onto us, and that the AI industry is using to legitimize the exclusion of the global majority from the decision around desirable futures, whether they should be enabled by AI systems or not. So it's one of the ambitions that I think we should have for pairs to keep categorizing those different frameworks, to help our new CSOs and especially CSOs that are engaged in social dialogue, so especially unions, to navigate those frameworks. What are the ones that are the right fit for their situations, but also to keep our contribution to rebalancing this landscape of imaginaries, because we will not be able to move further, much further, if we are not able to reclaim those kind of imaginaries and to for instance, prove to remind a great audience that AI systems are not nearly as efficient or as magical as they are marketed. Anyone from the audience who'd also want to add something? Yes, the recordings. So the papers are already accessible on the PERS website. We'll answer this technical question. If one of you would like to contribute something that has not been said, feel free to raise your hand and we'll let you speak. The papers are already on the PERS website. As for the recordings, it will take a little bit of time because we do slight editings just to make sure that the recordings match each paper and each intervention. This is just a measure to make the experience of our community easier when they try to navigate those different sessions and presentations. So it will probably be a month from now.
Pierre, I have one more thing to add, which is I'm reminded of the book, The Cult of the Amateur. And in that book, the author, who is writing about newspapers, said that newspapers were destroyed so much that even when space was made for them to come back, they could not recover. So our job, hopefully with pairs and with participation generally, is to make sure that as these large institutions try to damage participation, that we're holding the fort here and making sure participation is viable for marginalized people and for us as well.
And that in societies that are hit by a global pandemic of mental health crisis and loneliness, participatory approaches are also fun, joyful, great ways to meet people, to come together, to share values, to build projects together. And I think we should never really lose that as a North Star as well. Is that in any case, it's always better to have people would much rather be able to engage in those kind of participatory actions rather than being imposed a technological tool. Even if this technological tool, would it be efficient? It's funnier to be able to to make it a collective project and to enable this kind of appropriation by people sharing common values and goals. All right, so unless someone wants to raise their hand, I'm just going to take the opportunity to say thanks once again. The AI Collaborative who provided some resources to pairs, which allowed us to secure the venue for tomorrow, but also which allowed some of the speakers that will be on site tomorrow to travel, especially experts and activists from Global South communities who would not have been able to make it to New Delhi without it. I would like to thank all of the program committee supporters at the Institute Connected by Data, University of Sheffield, European Centre for Not-for-Profit Law, Digital Good, ISWE, The Data Tank, Data and Society, NIOL, Open Knowledge, Ada Lovelace Institute, and all of the members of the volunteer committee. I'm not going to read all of their name again. I'm just going to share my screen so they are going to be displayed. I've done that this morning, but this morning I think I was able to say it without butchering everybody's name. I think that right now this is beyond my ability. But thank you to all of them, and of course thanks to all of the volunteers who joined for the tech support, and thanks to all of the speakers, presenters, panelists that made this such an amazing day. Once again, we have...
And posters. And poster presenters.
And posters.
Thank you
Yes.
so much.
It was super fun meeting you and hearing from you. Pairs Online is fully recorded. All of the recordings will be shared, including the Q&A. Your notes, if you have notes, if you have questions, if you'd like to follow up on some things, if there are projects for which you would like to have some additional feedback, some more structured feedback, if you want to share some surveys or whatnot, you can do so. We have opened the Discord server for the Pairs community to keep engaged, to stay engaged throughout the year. You can expect a lot more than just the organizations of the annual summits. We're going to try to make this a resource for both researchers and practitioners, and especially to network together practitioners and researchers. Researchers looking for a greater impact, and practitioners looking for more evidence-based activities. This is going to be a great place to, a great matrix for those people to get connected. Pairs continues tomorrow in New Delhi for in-person presentation, and finally, we will again have some side events during the year, and we're planning to launch some reading groups. We're planning to launch some great activities. So please stay engaged. Thank you once again very much for joining us today, and we wish you a beautiful afternoon / evening / night / morning, wherever you are.